This is James. James is learning how to surf as we wait for a car to pick us up and take us out of Belize and into Guatemala. I met James and his wife Amy the previous night at a hostel in San Ignacio. I was drunk and cocky when I told them that I planned to try a hitchhike to Guatemala the next day. The next day, James and Amy asked if we are still going to do it. They had never hitchhiked before and were keen to give it a go. Sure, I told them. Not too sure how I was going to go, we set off and walked to the edge of town. We waited about 15 minutes to get our first lift. We managed to get into Guatemala pretty quickly actually, and were lucky enough to find a nice man who took us all the way to where we wanted to go in Guatemala. I don't have any footage of this as I wasn't planning on making a video. We spent the rest of the day schmoozing around and swinging on ropes. The next day we decided to try get to a place called Lanquin. We set out early with high spirits. After walking for about 2 hours to get out of town, we found a good spot where we almost immediately got a lift. We got many lifts throughout the day. None of them really took us to where we wanted to go on the best route, but we saw a lot of strange Guatemalan towns. We were going through a beautiful valley when the sun went down. It went very cold and dark quickly, and it started to rain. Being in the back of the ute, this was quite a miserable hour or two. Shivering and wet, we got to Coban. We decided to call it a day there and we found somewhere to sleep. Getting to Lanquin took much longer than it should have, but it was beautiful. After we got there, we tried to sneak into a cave, only to be stopped by a security guard. We bribed him and received full access to the cave. The next morning we set off to do what we came to do in Lanquin, Semoc Champagne. It was the clearest freshwater I'd ever seen. James and I shared a dreamlike moment where we were in one of the pools laying on a warm rock with water splashing over us. All of a sudden, a family of butterflies started fluttering all around us. It was very nice. After a few more days there, we headed off in aim of Lake Atitlan. We realized that it would be quite a journey, so we decided we would be happy to make it somewhere nearby, like Huehuetenango. That did not go to plan. After walking for hours in the heat, we finally found a lift. Unfortunately, the lift was going in the complete opposite direction that we needed to go, but we decided fuck it, and we ended up in good old El Rancho. Realizing how massively in the wrong place and in the middle of nowhere we were, we decided to try get to civilization in Guatemala City. A cool guy picked us up and let us into his car. This was the first time we had actually been inside a car, and it was a nice change. He wasn't listening to reggaeton, which was even better. Some days earlier, we decided that we would aim for El Paredon Beach, which would mean that we had hitchhiked right across Guatemala. Our driver told us that he was planning on going to El Paredon. This could have been the end of our journey, mission complete, but we decided that it would be too easy to accept this offer, and instead we were dropped off outside Guatemala City. We spent the night at a meadow bar, which was too much fun. The next day, realizing it was going to be impossible to get a ride out of a major city, we cheated and caught a 40-minute bus to Antigua. There I had some of the best food of my life. We also went to a strange church that was constantly blowing shit up. The next day we set off for the lake. Here we scored the best ride of our trip. The reason why this ride was so good is not for this video, but yeah, it was great. At one point our car broke down. When the police stopped, we were a bit nervous, but the driver told us not to worry as they were his friends. Turns out the driver was is a forensic pathologist who performs autopsies, and therefore he can get away with anything. The police fixed our car and off we went. We celebrated with a few beers. They offered to take us to some old ruins, and we accepted. After saying goodbye, we waited around before scoring a lift in a truck, where we squeezed 5 of us into the cabin. This truck took us all the way to the lake, where we took a local bus to the dock and got a plancha, like a small little boat, to the town we wanted to go to. We spent the next morning swimming in the lake. In the afternoon I said bye to James and Amy, as they wanted to stay at the spot and I wanted to go to another spot on the lake, San Pedro. San Pedro ended up being the highlight of my trip. It is a place where everyone had lost their mind and you can do as you please. I ended up getting stuck at San Pedro for a while. In the meantime, Amy and James had made it to the beach. After some days, I realized that I had to get a move on or I wouldn't end up finishing my journey. I said bye to my new friends in San Pedro and headed for the beach. It was a long, depressing, hungover day on the road. At many points I almost turned back. Following some bad advice, I caught a plancha across the lake, which was incredibly rough, to a place whose name I cannot remember. I went to another town from there to Santa Lucia and waited a long time before getting a next ride, which was a colectivo, which was completely full, and the man told me to get on the roof, which was very scary, but I found a beer and that helped. After a few hours, someone told me to get inside the colectivo. This was even scarier than the roof, definitely the scariest part of my journey. There was a guy in the colectivo who had a gun out, loaded, finger on the trigger, ready to go. I sat there for a while, trying to work out if I was being kidnapped or not. Turns out I wasn't. I'm still unsure as to why the gun. I took a few more windy rides around strange parts of Guatemala before I got to El Paredon, the beach. I found James and Amy just in time for sunset. This ended up being one of the best adventures of my life. I almost enjoyed every moment of it. And I'm sorry for the lack of footage. I wish I had better footage because we saw some great shit. But as I said, the video and journey was unplanned. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Jump up.